Hello, my name is Sonia Greiner, and I am currently in my Capstone III class for a Master's in Sociology through Arizona State University. For our last major project, we were asked to put together a presentation based off an area of concern in the study of sociology. I opted to discuss the issue of homelessness, and I chose to concentrate specifically on the homeless of Yuma, Arizona, my hometown. As part of this last capstone class, we were also responsible for putting in 40 hours of internship. I chose to do mine at the Crossroads Mission, which has been a very valuable choice to link to my project. The homeless situation of Yuma, Arizona is not a new one. Over time, those who have been referred to as beggars, bums, vagrants, vagabonds, all share in common the statistic of having nowhere to call home. With Yuma being located in the heart of the desert and maintaining one of the highest average daily temperatures, it has become a warmer choice for many of the homeless, more than its current accommodation in the form of shelters and outreach facilities can keep up with. There is hope, though, that this can be turned around. Homelessness is far from being just a Yuma, Arizona problem. In fact, it's of grave concern that affects the entire world. I'm going to be starting out with some background information concerning the United States breakdown of homelessness, but then I'll be concentrating more solely just on the Yuma, Arizona area. This United States map shows a breakdown by state as to recent numbers of the homeless. For the most part, the larger the population, the larger number of homeless men, women, and children, which would only make sense. The bar graph presents information that narrows down which specific states and counties have the higher number, which once again would mesh with the idea the more people that live in an area, the more homeless people that you would have. As you can tell from this map, Arizona is sitting at just the second to lowest tier with 12,264 homeless people as of the gathering of this information. So compared to such areas as New York and California, these numbers may seem small, but they are still of big concern for the state of Arizona. There has been a lot of research collected to show most types of subcategories for homelessness. Here one can see some of the major causes that can lead to homelessness and the most common age demographics. It should be no surprise that the top 3 reasons why people can end up homeless include loss of job, some form of substance abuse, and problems with the law, including incarceration. The results of the age of the homeless is somewhat alarming, since there is no true age bracket that sticks out the most that could be targeted more so than others. This just establishes the unsettling notion that, like cancer, homelessness does not discriminate by age. All are quite equally susceptible. A study that was conducted over 20 years ago showed some staggering figures. 1,507 random adults who live in the continental United States were interviewed via telephone, and they were asked if they had ever experienced homelessness in their lifetime. Of these 1,507 adults, 112 of them reported that yes, they could say that they had experienced literal homelessness. That equivocates to 12%. To clarify, what I mean by literal homeless means people that stay in places not meant for human habitation, such as living on the streets or in their cars, staying in shelters or at a friend or relative's home, in some form of transitional housing, or possibly in a hotel that was paid by some other form of organization. Another study was conducted back in 2004 to determine the geography of homelessness across the United States. Different sizes of communities were looked at, and Yuma, Arizona was categorized as being a small metro area. Results of the study showed that 24.3 out of every 10,000 people living in such a sized area were homeless. The study discovered that the visible homeless of more metropolis areas are overrepresented. The distribution of those without a home is showing that with increased numbers, so is the disbursement. My home of Yuma, Arizona is a prime example of this phenomena. Although just hovering around 150,000, with an increase during winter months by those escaping the cold north. It constitutes a large population of homeless men, women, and families. The importance of shelters when it comes to trying to provide for all of these homeless people, there are basic necessities that they try to make sure they address first. Their main focus is to assist the less fortunate, of which the homeless make up a large portion of. The basic necessities associated with shelters usually includes food, clothing, and shelter. Some of the larger ones also provide additional services such as counseling and job searching help. Homelessness is usually viewed as being a very temporary situation, offering a safe haven while those struggling with it try to gain back their financial and emotional well-being. Yuma is very fortunate to have the Crossroads mission. Established back in 1959, it has continued to grow and offer more and more services over the past years. Currently, they offer a detox program, a recovery program, counseling, nursing services, 3 meals a day, an educational center, GED prep, and of course shelter for women, men, and children. This would include both drop-ins and those that are there for longer stays. Although the shelter is quite dated, it is staffed by a multitude of volunteers and selfless individuals. In fact, a lot of the people that they hire are people that have been able to graduate from their recovery programs. They are a nonprofit organization and partner with many local and statewide programs for their funding. Although Crossroads Mission is doing a wonderful job to help out the community, they do have their issues as well. The biggest one is the concern of their maximum stay of just 10 consecutive days per month. Due to the shortage of beds, this is how the mission has tried to adjust to not enough beds for all in need. If someone is going to be able to get back on their feet again, this 10 days will not suffice. Even if one can find employment within a week or two, their time at the shelter will have come to an end. There would be no time to earn a few paychecks enough to save money to be able to use it for the deposit, last month's rent on a room or apartment. It can become a vicious cycle of 2 steps forward and 1 step back, leading to no true improvement in their life. I believe that there is a viable solution, though. Taking the idea from other cities, Yuma's County Board of Supervisors could vote to add to the next city ballot a proposition to increase city sales tax by a mere quarter cent to aid the Crossroads Shelter's ability to increase more bed space. The financial difference such funds could create would then be allocated strictly to a building fund that would allow adding on dormitory space. Once the taxes had accrued enough money for such funding, the additional quarter cent could continue to go to the Crossroad Mission and used for operating expenses as need be, or the Board of Supervisors could opt to have the increase set just long enough to meet the needs of the expansion only. This could be a detail that could be decided upon later by the board. Currently, the Crossroads Mission has the capability of housing 70 men and 50 women and children in their shelters. This does not include the overflow space used for their drop-in clients. If the men's shelter were to double in bed count from 70 to 140, and the women and children's from 50 to 100, a maximum stay of just 10 days would not be necessary. Then, working with their caseworkers, those establishing employment could then have time to save their earnings long enough to accumulate enough for the needed deposit and first and last month's rent. It's easy math. More beds equals longer stays, which gives the clients time. In 2002, the United States Housing Assistance Council released a report on best practices to establish just how serious of gap there is in rural Arizona between its current and estimated needs of emergency, transitional, and permanent supportive housing. Based off of the information collected, just 12% bed space in these categories is available. Just as previous information described Yuma as being a small metro area, the Housing Assistance Council labels the area as part of rural Arizona. These statistics make sense when compared to the shortage of beds at the Crossroad Mission. On a side note, the Best Practices report came back with a very specific breakdown of other categories where rural Arizona lacks enough support. Some of these include supportive services, such as substance abuse treatment, mental health care, and life skills training, all of which the Crossroads Mission provides services for already. The idea of using additional tax dollars to finance the needs of a city, county, state, or country as a whole is far from a new idea. If such a tax hike is done in small increments, the effect is not felt as much by those paying it, but at the same time, it can accumulate a large amount of money. The City of Los Angeles is currently trying to do the same thing as I'm proposing Yuma County do. Their Board of Supervisors unanimously voted to add to their next ballot a call for such a quarter-cent increase in their city sales tax to aid in the fight to end homelessness. Their estimates show that $355 million can be collected over the next 10 years to fight this good fight. In addition to the city sales tax increase voted onto next month's ballot by the Los Angeles County Board of Supervisors, the county just released last year a homeless initiative. Well developed, this plan could bring big change to this large county. As with Yuma using the same type of city sales tax increase in the quarter cent, the detailed initiative goes even further in showing what other steps need to be taken to truly help the homeless population become smaller. There are 6 areas of concentration being discussed in this initiative, including prevention, subsidized housing, increased income, case management and services, a better coordinated system, and of course, affordable housing. Yuma County's numbers are much lower due to simply population, but all the ideas presented in this initiative are areas Yuma could try and mirror as well. Across the country, the District of Columbia's mayor also proposed a similar quarter-cent city sales tax increase like Los Angeles County for Maryland and Northern Virginia. Claiming to be able to generate over $22 million annually, the proposal would supply more temporary shelter as well as low-income permanent housing. The mayor's office is calling it a transformation on the approach to homelessness, something new that has not been seen before. I can only assume that if this is successful for Maryland and Northern Virginia, other outlying areas around the District of Columbia would see fit to copy this idea and have better success with their homeless rate as well. Let's take a closer look at just how this small increase could have a large impact. Currently, Yuma County sits at a 2.81% sales tax. This quarter cent would take it up to just 3.06%. As with any other time citizens are asked to pay more in any capacity, increases in taxes can ruffle some feathers. Oftentimes, voters won't even notice how much the increase is, just that it's an increase, which means less money in their pockets with nothing personally gained. A quarter cent on any one purchase is a barely noticeable amount, but when added together with all other purchases, this small amount becomes quite powerful. Although the dollars presented from the Los Angeles and District of Columbia quarter cent increases are much higher, it all needs to be looked at in comparison to population, since the amount of homeless in a smaller metro area such as Yuma would obviously be less than in either of these large metropolises. The author of the article on the Los Angeles proposed quarter city sales tax increase offered up a couple real-life purchase examples that could be made and just how the increases would affect said purchases. Just 10 cents on $40 and $1 on a $400 purchase seems quite minuscule when looked at individually. Such a concept would make for good campaigning before the tax hike was voted on, so people would understand it was not a big chunk of change that they're asking for. The term win-win might be overused at times, but in this situation, I believe it to be absolutely true. No matter the day of the week or the time of the year, at any given moment, many of the street corners, especially those with more traffic like off-ramps coming from the interstate, will have someone panhandling for money. Some of the homeless have actually put together designated time slots to allow more the opportunity to get cash through a rotating system. This is an uncomfortable position for most drivers passing by to be put in, since they don't want to seem insensitive, yet being confronted by so many almost seems like a form of harassment. The same is true for the makeshift camps that homeless people will set up in public areas when no shelter space is available. Litter accumulates and such areas become an eyesore and a constant reminder of the homeless situation. If the Crossroads mission was afforded the ability to expand on its bed numbers, much of this could be avoided altogether or at least minimalized, creating a safer and cleaner city. I believe the idea of a quarter-cent sales tax increase has a real shot at helping out the situation here in Yuma, Arizona. Part of that reason is by the change in attitude that's being shown. Research has shown that opinions on supporting policy initiatives that aim at helping the homeless are increasing. This is excellent news since homelessness is more prominent than ever all across the country. The study showed that this change in attitude has been very gradual and that essential services such as shelter, food, and clothing are the most supported. This study presented specific demographics of where the least sympathy comes from, and that is from the older white male population. The data collected showed that most all other constituents can be convinced to help in the area of homelessness since its prevalence is so high and it can no longer be ignored. In summary, I would just like to reiterate some of the major ideas that I presented here. First of all, sometimes the best ideas are the least obvious. Who would have thought that just adding a quarter-cent to our current city sales tax could produce enough money to be able to add the needed bed space? It seems like a small amount, but as previous slides show, when you add all of these amounts together, you can end up with a lot of money. As described by buying the sweater or a TV, a quarter-cent increase is extremely minimal. Just 40 cents more to pay for a sweater, I would not even notice it myself if I was in a store. The idea that we're taking this from the Los Angeles area and in the District of Columbia, it's important to be able to follow in the footsteps of like-minded people. This is an idea that it's not new, but I do think that in the future we're going to be seeing more of it being used to try to help fund the homeless situation. In my opinion, the Yuma County Board of Supervisors is the easiest method to get this on our ballot. There could be other people that would push forward. We could do petitions, but due to the stipulation that the board does have the right to add to the ballot that of which they agree upon, would be the easiest method to get it to the vote as soon as possible. And finally, doubled space in Crossroads mission can lead to double time. That's the key factor we know to help our homeless get back on their feet. With the current limited amount of time that they can stay, this is just not possible. I'm hoping that the Yuma County Board of Supervisors takes my advice and will add to the next ballot the vote to increase city sales tax by just a quarter cent. The homeless situation of the county is not improving. It's only getting worse. Although such a proposal will not make homelessness disappear overnight, the funds raised through the increase will definitely make a huge positive impact on the current situation. Giving those trying their hardest to improve their lives for a better future more time to gain employment and/or housing will move them the necessary steps forward. While helping its own, Yuma could also be setting an example for other areas to follow, especially smaller metro areas like it. If Yuma can stand together, it can build together a better future for the less fortunate homeless population. We must be the change we want to see in the world. Thank you for viewing and listening.